The $50 million check lay on the table between them, and Jonathan Pierce watched as Lily Bennett picked it up with trembling hands. For a moment, he smiled. Everyone had a price. Then she tore it in half. "You can't buy me," she whispered, her voice steady despite the tears streaming down her face. "Not everyone is for sale." In that moment, staring at the woman who'd saved his life 6 months earlier, Jonathan realized he'd just made the biggest miscalculation of his career and maybe his life. But let me take you back, because this story doesn't start in a billionaire's penthouse. It starts in the fluorescent-lit chaos of a county hospital ER, where Lily Bennett was about to make a choice that would change everything. It was 2 a.m. on a Tuesday when they brought him in. Lily had been on her feet for 14 hours straight, her second double shift that week, and her phone kept buzzing with another text from the mortgage company. Her mother's house, the one her father built before he died, had 30 days before foreclosure. But she couldn't think about that now. The man on the gurney was dying. "No ID, no insurance," her supervisor barked, already walking away. "Stabilize him and call social services." Lily's hands moved on autopilot, checking vitals, starting an IV. But something was wrong. His breathing was deteriorating fast, his throat swelling. Anaphylactic shock. She'd seen it once before during her residency. Rare. Deadly. And the medication he needed? The hospital didn't stock it. Too expensive. Too liability-prone. "We need ephedrine sulfate compound 7. Now," Lily said, her voice cutting through the chaos. "We don't have authorization for that. It's $3,000 per dose. He'll be dead in 20 minutes without it." "Then we make him comfortable. That's all we can do." Lily stood there, staring up a stranger's face. He couldn't have been older than 35. Someone's son. Maybe someone's father. And hospital policy was about to let him die because of a price tag. Because everything came down to money. Her hand went to her pocket, feeling the envelope there. $200. Everything she had left after paying her own bills. It was supposed to go toward her mother's medication this week, but she knew someone, a pharmacist who worked the gray market, someone who could get rare medications without the red tape. What Lily didn't know, as she slipped out of the ER and made that call, was that the man dying on that table was Jonathan Pierce, tech billionaire, CEO of Pierce Industries, a man worth $8 billion, a man who, in 6 months, would walk back into her life and turn it completely upside down. 20 minutes later, Lily returned with the medication. Her supervisor didn't ask questions. She didn't want to know. The injection went in, and they waited. 30 seconds. 1 minute. Then the man gasped, his airways opening, his vitals stabilizing. He was going to live. Lily finished her shift at 6 a.m., went home to her cramped studio apartment, and collapsed into bed. She'd saved a life. It had cost her $200 she couldn't afford to lose, and she'd probably broken a dozen hospital regulations, but she'd saved him. That had to count for something. She never even learned his name, because by the time her next shift rolled around, he'd been transferred to a private hospital, flown out by helicopter. Someone had finally identified him. And Lily? She went back to her double shifts, her mounting debts, her mother's deteriorating condition. That's how life worked when you weren't born into money. You made impossible choices and kept moving forward. 6 months passed. 6 months of Lily barely keeping her head above water, of watching her mother's house slip further away, of the weight pressing down on her shoulders growing heavier with each passing day. She had no idea that across the city, in a glass tower overlooking the skyline, Jonathan Pierce was obsessed with finding her. You see, when Jonathan woke up in that private hospital, the doctors told him what happened, told him about the mystery nurse who used her own money to buy black market medication, who disappeared before he regained consciousness, who'd saved his life and asked for nothing in return. And for Jonathan Pierce, a man who'd built an empire on the belief that everyone had a price, that loyalty could be bought, that love was just another transaction, this was impossible, unacceptable. It didn't fit into his understanding of how the world worked. So he became obsessed. He hired investigators. He reviewed hospital records. He tracked down that pharmacist and paid him $50,000 for a name. And when he finally found her, when he saw the reality of Lily Bennett's life, something shifted in his chest. Something he didn't recognize and didn't like. Because Lily Bennett wasn't some wealthy do-gooder. She was drowning, and she'd still chosen to save him. Lily was walking out of the hospital after another endless shift when she saw him, the man from the ER. She'd never forgotten his face. You don't forget someone you pulled back from death. But he looked different now. Expensive suit, confident posture, and he was walking straight toward her. "Lily Bennett," he said. His voice was smooth, controlled. "We need to talk." Her exhaustion made her blunt. "I'm sorry. Do I know you?" "You saved my life 6 months ago. St. Catherine's ER. You spent your last $200 on medication the hospital wouldn't authorize." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "I'm Jonathan Pierce, and I'd like to repay you." The name hit her like cold water. Jonathan Pierce, the tech billionaire, the one always in the news for his ruthless business deals and his revolving door of supermodel girlfriends. She'd saved Jonathan Pierce. "That's not necessary," Lily said, trying to step around him. "I was just doing my job." His hand caught her arm, not rough, but firm. $200,000 direct deposit to your account. Consider it a thank you." Lily pulled away. "I don't want your money, Mr. Pierce." "Everyone wants money, Miss Bennett." His smile turned knowing, especially someone about to lose their mother's house to foreclosure. "Yes, I did my research. $200,000 would solve all your problems. Why refuse?" And there it was, that edge in his voice, that assumption that he'd already won because he always won, because money was the answer to everything. "Because some things," Lily said quietly, "are not for sale. Good night, Mr. Pierce." She walked away, leaving him standing there in the parking lot, and she could feel his eyes on her back. She didn't know it yet, but she'd just done something no one had done to Jonathan Pierce in over a decade. She'd said no. Jonathan Pierce didn't accept rejection, not in business, not in life, and certainly not from someone who clearly needed exactly what he was offering. So he did what he always did. He strategized, he calculated, and he waited for the right moment. That moment came 2 weeks later, when Lily's world finally collapsed.
The foreclosure notice came on a Monday. Final notice. The house would be auctioned in 7 days. Lily stared at the paper, her mother's frail voice calling from the bedroom, and something inside her cracked. She'd fought so hard, worked herself to exhaustion, and it still wasn't enough. She was sitting on the front steps of that house, the one her father built with his own hands, the one that held every memory of her childhood, when the black town car pulled up. Jonathan stepped out, and this time he wasn't alone. He had an attorney, a contract, and an offer that made her previous problems seem insignificant. $50 million. 1 year as my wife. A business arrangement, nothing more. My board of directors is threatening to remove me unless I prove I'm settling down. You need money, I need a solution. This benefits us both. Lily's hand shook as she looked at the contract. $50 million. She could save the house, pay off every debt, give her mother the treatment she needed, security for the rest of her life, all for 1 year of pretending. "Why me?" she whispered. "Because you're the only person who ever helped me without wanting something in return. That makes you trustworthy, controllable, perfect for what I need." Controllable. The word stung like a slap. If you can't stand people who think money gives them the right to control others, hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments. Type "nobody's for sale." Because what Lily said next shocked even her. "No." Jonathan blinked. Once, twice, like he'd misheard. "I'm sorry?" "I said no, Mr. Pierce." Lily stood up, the contract still in her hands. "You think because I'm drowning in debt, I'll let you buy me? Turn me into some kind of transaction?" $50 million, Ms. Bennett. Do you understand what that means? Your mother gets the best care money can buy. You never work another double shift. You're free. "I'm not free if I'm bought." Her voice cracked, but she held firm. "You called me controllable, like I'm some kind of asset you're acquiring. That's not a partnership. That's ownership. And I'm not for sale." She handed the contract back to him, watching confusion flicker across his face. Real, genuine confusion, like she'd just spoken a foreign language. "Everyone has a price," he said, and now there was an edge to his voice. "You're just being stubborn. Pride doesn't pay bills, Lily." "Maybe not, but it's all I have left, and I'm not giving it to you." She walked back into the house she'd lose in 7 days, and closed the door. And for the first time in his adult life, Jonathan Pierce sat on those steps and felt something he didn't recognize. He felt small. The next few weeks were a nightmare. Lily lost the house. Her mother had to move into a facility that accepted Medicaid. Bare walls, overworked nurses, the smell of industrial cleaner barely masking decay. And every night, Lily lay awake in her studio apartment, wondering if she'd made the right choice, if pride was really worth watching her mother suffer. But something else was happening, something she didn't expect. Jonathan Pierce kept showing up, not with offers, not with contracts, just there, at the hospital, volunteering in the ER. Badly. He was terrible at it, couldn't start an IV to save his life, got squeamish around blood, mixed up basic medical terms. The staff laughed behind his back, but he kept coming. "What are you doing?" Lily finally asked him 3 weeks after she'd rejected his offer. They were in the break room, and he was struggling to figure out how the ancient coffee machine worked. "Learning," he said simply. "You work here 90 hours a week. I thought I should understand why." "You're a billionaire, Mr. Pierce. You don't need to understand anything about my world." He turned to face her, and something in his expression had changed, softened. "Maybe that's the problem. Maybe I've spent so long at the top, I forgot what it's like down here, where people actually matter." Lily wanted to stay angry at him, wanted to hold on to her righteous refusal. But watching this man, this billionaire who could buy anything, struggle with the coffee pot and genuinely try to understand her life, it cracked something in her chest. The coffee machine is broken. It's been broken for 2 years. The hospital won't fix it because it's not a priority. We all just bring our own coffee now. Jonathan looked at the machine, then at her. And the next morning, there was a brand new commercial-grade coffee maker in the break room. No note, no acknowledgement, just there. But that wasn't the end of it. He kept showing up, kept learning, and slowly, against her better judgment, Lily started to see something in him. Something broken that he was trying to fix. Not with money this time, with effort. What neither of them knew was that someone else was watching. Someone who saw Jonathan's distraction, his softening, as an opportunity, and she was about to make her move.
Her name was Clarissa Whitmore, and she'd been Jonathan's fiancée 3 years ago, until he'd ended it, citing her as incompatible with his business goals. Translation: she wanted love, he wanted a merger. Now she was back, arm in arm with Richard Tate, Jonathan's business partner, and the man who'd been quietly undermining him for months. They were at a board meeting when Richard made his move. "Gentlemen," Richard said, sliding a folder across the conference table, "I think we need to discuss Jonathan's recent instability." The photos spilled out. Jonathan in scrubs, Jonathan volunteering at a county hospital, Jonathan spending time with an earnest drowning in debt. The implication was clear. Jonathan was losing focus, becoming weak, vulnerable. "He's refused 3 major acquisitions," Clarissa added, her voice honey-sweet with concern. "He's spending company time playing doctor instead of leading this company. The board should consider a vote of no confidence." Jonathan sat at the head of the table, watching this unfold. He could fight it, could use his majority shares to shut them down. But Richard had been clever. He'd been building alliances, positioning himself as the stable alternative. And if Jonathan revealed why he was really at that hospital, that he was falling for a woman who'd rejected him, that for the first time in his life he cared about something more than profit, it would prove their point, that he was compromised, weak. So he said nothing, and the vote was scheduled for 6 months from now. But Richard and Clarissa weren't done. They had one more card to play, and this one was aimed directly at Lily. Lily was called into her supervisor's office on a Thursday morning, her stomach already knotting with anxiety. She'd been at the hospital for 8 years, never a complaint, never a mistake on her record. "Miss Bennett," her supervisor said, not meeting her eyes, "there's been an allegation, misappropriation of medication, specifically a dose of ephedrine sulfide compound from approximately 7 months ago." The bottom dropped out of Lily's world. They knew. Someone knew about the night she'd saved Jonathan. "Patient records show you
accessed the medication log that night, but the medication wasn't properly authorized or paid for. That's theft, Miss Bennett. And grounds for immediate termination and revocation of your nursing license. I saved someone's life, Lily whispered. He would have died. That doesn't excuse breaking protocol. We have an investigation pending, but as of today, you're suspended pending review. Lily walked out of that office in a daze. Her license, her career, 8 years of her life, gone. And she knew, somehow, that this wasn't a coincidence. This was calculated. Someone had dug into that night. Someone wanted to destroy her. She made it to her car before the tears came. And that's where Jonathan found her. If you believe that doing the right thing should never be punished, hit that subscribe button, because what happens next will restore your faith. Now watch what she does when she realizes who's really behind this.
"It's Clarissa and Richard," Jonathan said, sliding into the passenger seat of her beat-up Honda. His voice was tight with fury. "They're destroying you to get to me." "Why?" Lily looked at him, tears still streaming down her face. "Why would they do this to me? I don't even know them." "Because I care about you." The words came out raw, unfiltered. And they see that as a weakness, something they can exploit. They've orchestrated this entire thing, the investigation, the timing, to force my hand. Either I distance myself from you and prove I'm still the ruthless businessman they need, or I defend you and lose my company. Lily laughed, but it was bitter. So this is what it's like to be in your world, where people destroy each other over power and money? Yes. Jonathan's jaw tightened. And I'm sorry you got caught in it. This is my fault, all of it. Then fix it, Lily said, her voice breaking. You're Jonathan Pierce. You're a billionaire. Can't you just buy them off? Pay them to go away? Jonathan looked at her, and in that moment, she saw the truth in his eyes. I could, but it wouldn't stop. People like Richard and Clarissa, they'll always come back, always find another angle. The only way to truly stop them is to expose what they've done. But that takes time, evidence, and I don't have time. How long until they vote you out? 4 weeks. Lily turned away, staring out the windshield at the hospital where she'd given everything. So you lose your company and I lose my career. They win. Unless... Jonathan stopped, shaking his head. No, I can't ask you that. Ask me what? The original offer, $50 million, 1 year. But this time, it's not about control or transactions. It's about partnership. We get married, I stabilize my position with the board, and I use that time to gather evidence against Richard and Clarissa. In return, I clear your name, get your license back, and you get the money you need for your mother. Lily closed her eyes. This was it. The moment where she had to choose between her pride and her survival, between her principles and the brutal reality that sometimes the world didn't reward doing the right thing. If I say yes, how do I know you won't just use me? That this isn't just another transaction to you? Jonathan took her hand, and for the first time since she'd met him, his touch was gentle, uncertain. I'm terrified, he admitted. I'm terrified that if you say no, I'll lose you. Not as an asset, not as a solution, but as the only person who's ever wanted me to be better than what I am.
The wedding was small. A courthouse ceremony with 2 witnesses and a contract that protected them both. Lily wore a dress she'd bought from a consignment shop. Jonathan wore the same suit he'd worn the day they met. And when the judge asked if they took each other, they both said yes. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't a fairy tale. It was a strategic alliance between 2 people who were both drowning in different ways. But something shifted after the papers were signed. Maybe it was the way Jonathan immediately transferred $1 million to the facility where Lily's mother stayed. Not part of the contract, just done. Or the way he moved Lily into his penthouse, but gave her the master bedroom while he took the guest room. Or how he came home every night and asked about her day, actually listened. Or maybe it was 3 weeks into their arrangement when Lily found Jonathan sitting on the balcony at 2 a.m., staring at a photograph. She sat down beside him, and he showed it to her without a word. A young boy, maybe 7 years old, standing beside a woman with kind eyes. "My mother," Jonathan said quietly. "She died when I was 8. Cancer. My father had the money to save her, experimental treatments, the best doctors, but he said it was a poor investment. She'd just be a drain on resources, so he let her die." Lily's breath caught. "I built my entire life around proving I wasn't weak like her, that I wouldn't let emotions or sentiment get in the way of success, that everything could be reduced to profit and loss. And then you saved my life for $200, and it broke everything I'd convinced myself was true." Lily reached for his hand. "You're not your father." "How do you know?" "Because your father would have let me lose my license, would have seen it as collateral damage. But you're here, working every day to clear my name. That's not weakness, that's strength." Jonathan looked at her. Really looked at her. And for the first time in 27 years, he let someone see the scared 8-year-old boy he'd buried under layers of ambition and armor. And Lily, she saw him, all of him. And she didn't look away.
The evidence came together slowly. Financial records showing Richard's embezzlement. Emails proving Clarissa had falsified the complaint against Lily. Testimonies from board members who had been blackmailed into supporting Richard's coup. Jonathan worked tirelessly, and for the first time in his career, he wasn't doing it for profit. He was doing it for justice. The board meeting happened on a Tuesday. Richard and Clarissa walked in confident, certain they'd already won. The votes were practically counted. Jonathan Pierce was finished. Then, Lily walked in. "Miss Bennett," Richard said smoothly, "this is a private board meeting." "She's my wife," Jonathan said, standing, "and she has every right to be here." "Your wife," Clarissa's laugh was sharp. "Please, everyone knows that's a sham marriage, a desperate attempt to save face." "You're right," Lily said, her voice calm, clear. "It started as a transaction, an arrangement. But somewhere along the way, it became something real. And that terrifies people like you, doesn't it? The idea that someone might actually change, that love might be stronger than greed." She placed the folder on the table. "This is evidence of embezzlement, fraud, and falsification of medical records. Richard Tate has been stealing from this company for 18 months. Clarissa Whitmore orchestrated a campaign to destroy my career as leverage.
And both of you have manipulated this board through blackmail and threats." The room erupted. Board members grabbed the documents, their faces paling as they read. Richard stood, trying to bluster through, but security was already moving toward him. Clarissa's mask of confidence cracked, revealing the desperation underneath. "You can't prove any of this," Richard snarled. "Actually," Jonathan said, his voice cold, "I've spent the last 8 weeks doing exactly that. Not because it benefits me financially, but because you try to destroy someone I love, and that's something I won't tolerate." Comment: justice wins if you're Team Lily and Jonathan, because what happens next is the moment they've both been waiting for. 2 months later, Lily walked into the hospital for her first shift back. Her license had been fully reinstated. Richard was facing criminal charges. Clarissa had fled the country. And Jonathan? He'd restructured his entire company, creating a foundation dedicated to providing free medical care to underserved communities. But something else had changed. Lily came home to the penthouse, their home now, not just his, and found Jonathan in the kitchen, actually cooking. Badly. Smoke was pouring from a pan, and he was frantically waving a dish towel at the smoke detector. "I was trying to make dinner," he said sheepishly. "I thought, I don't know, that we could stop ordering takeout and actually have a meal together, like normal people." Lily laughed, actually laughed, and helped him salvage what remained of the chicken. They ate together on the balcony, watching the sunset over the city, and it wasn't fancy or perfect. It was just them. "Our year's almost up," Jonathan said quietly. "The contract expires in 3 months." Lily's heart stuttered. She'd been trying not to think about it, about what happened when their arrangement ended. "What do you want to happen?" she asked. Jonathan set down his fork and turned to face her. "I want to rip up that contract. I want to start over. No terms, no conditions, no $50 million hanging over us. Just us, if you'll have me. Not as a business partner, as me." Lily looked at him, this man who started as a stranger, become an adversary, and somehow transformed into the person she couldn't imagine her life without. "Just you?" she said softly. "The billionaire who burns chicken and cries during medical dramas and still can't work the hospital coffee machine? That's the one." She kissed him then, under the stars, with the taste of burnt chicken still on her lips, and it was the most honest moment of her life. "Just you," she whispered. "That's all I've ever wanted."
The contract sat in a drawer, forgotten. They never needed it, because what they built wasn't based on money or obligation. It was based on choice. Every single day, they chose each other. Lily's mother got the treatment she needed and moved into a beautiful assisted living facility that Jonathan funded, not as a gift, but as a family responsibility, because that's what family did. Jonathan learned to cook, eventually. And Lily learned that being vulnerable wasn't weakness, that accepting help didn't mean selling out. And on their 1-year anniversary, Jonathan had one final surprise. He took Lily back to St. Catherine's Hospital, to the ER, where she'd saved his life. And in front of all her colleagues, he got down on one knee.
not with the contract this time, but with a ring that belonged to his mother. "You saved my life for $200, he said, his voice shaking. "I offered you 50 million, and you said no. You taught me that the most valuable things in life can't be bought. They can only be earned. So I'm not offering you money. I'm offering you me. All my flaws, all my mistakes, and a promise that I'll spend the rest of my life trying to be worthy of the gift you gave me. Will you marry me? For real this time?" Lily looked at him. This beautiful, broken man who learned to value people over profit. And she said the only word that mattered. Yes. Because some things really can't be bought, but they can be earned. One day, one choice, one moment of courage at a time. And in the end, that's worth more than all the money in the world.